Joining us to discuss that and other issues concerning displaced persons is Charity Tooze, Senior Communications Director for UNHCR here in Washington. Ms. Tooze, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, just by listening to the reports that we ran earlier, this is an overwhelming situation, clearly, for all aid donors and helps and organizations providing help. How sustainable is it, especially in the Dadaab camps, where it's so extreme, the need?
I think that, you know, every day we're bringing in more people, we're bringing in more emergency tents, more food. The concept of sustainability with the sheer numbers is the only way that this is going to be able to become manageable is if the humanitarian community can have greater access inside of Somalia and that they can be protected and secure in order to deliver to the people who so desperately need it.
And now with Al-Shabaab kind of paving the way for aid organizations to operate again, will that help?
That will definitely help. The issue is always to make sure that with organization like Al-Shabaab that the aid actually goes to the people.
The way it's supposed to
so
go.
We really need to put in accountability measures to make sure that the hungry really get the food. And it seems like they're being responsive, but it's a tenuous political situation, as you know.
Now, moving beyond the issues of providing food, shelter, the most immediate needs, we hear how these refugees are so traumatized, of course, coming from areas of conflict, making their way to their nearest refugee camp, seeing death, seeing, you know, families drop and losing families. What about the psychological aspect? As we heard Dr. Maswa say, mental health is very underplayed in Africa, despite what is going on.
You know, when people have so many intersections of loss, they have loss from violence, they have loss from losing their crops and deprivation and losing their children. There's layers of needs. When people are in this kind of survival, it's usually not until they get to a place where they can settle for a moment or breathe that some of the deeper psychological needs start to emerge. There's the initial crisis, like you said, of getting them food and water, and we have mental health people in the feeding centers in Kenya and Ethiopia, but it's usually once people start to sit back for a second that the grief and the loss really start to reach the surface. And
when they do reach the surface, are there services that UNHCR and other organizations provide that can help these people deal with the reality now of their new existence?
Absolutely, and I think you and I talked about before that there's a spectrum, and it really depends on the particular situation. Right now in Dadaab, the focus is really on emergency and crisis. Once the numbers go down, hopefully there's aid that's allowed, more aid allowed into Somalia, then they'll be able to do a community assessment and work with the community to get a sense of what their needs are. In certain situations, like for instance in Haiti, there may be a community assessment that's done and there's a lot of gender-based violence. So there's a very particular trauma response that needs to happen on the ground for gender-based violence versus individuals who have been experiencing drought for the last 6 seasons. Their loss and what they've been through and their deprivation is different versus an Iraqi refugee who was living a middle-class life, who lost 7 family members, finds themselves in another country, and they have a sense of all of that they've lost and the way that that shows up. Some of the symptoms are anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress. For children, if they can receive services early on, and this is a point of focus for the UNHCR. We partner with other organizations to try to do mental health outreach. And
so
it just depends.
There is focus and there is a priority.
There is a priority, but like I said, in this particular instance, it's not going to be the #1 priority until the emergency slows down.
Well, thank you so much. Charity Tooze, Senior Communications Director for UNHCR, joined us here in Washington. Again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Well, for more information on any of today's stories, please visit us online at voaafrica.com. You can also visit us on Facebook. Just search for In Focus.